3 law firms on retainer. I don't know how much money is coming in, but I know that a lot of money is going out every single month for Diddy.
It's so complicated, convoluted, chaotic. It's hard to actually figure out what's what, but it's becoming clearer.
Tupac Shakur, the rap icon the world believed was gone since the 90s, might not be gone at all. Word is he's been alive, hidden away for nearly 3 decades, and now shocking reports say he's gearing up to return with proof that could crush 2 of hip-hop's biggest titans, Jay-Z and Diddy. This ain't just some recycled internet rumor, no blurry snapshot from a random beach or some look-alike rocking a bandana in Havana. These whispers are hitting heavy, coming from law enforcement circles, sudden FBI curiosity, and insiders swearing the stage is set for a shakeup. And it won't be with a surprise album. It's rumored to be a full-blown takedown.
I felt like, they had a whole lot of potential. Jay was more quiet. But I mean, I learned that Jay was being quiet because he was taking notes. He was taking notes, observing everything, taking it all in. Because, sometimes you're around and you're watching to see things to do.
For years, the world accepted the Vegas drive-by as the tragic end of Tupac. 4 bullets, chaos at the hospital, and then those infamous 6 days in limbo before the media pronounced him gone. But fast forward nearly 30 years and the game board looks nothing like anyone imagined. With Jay-Z and Diddy locked in battles across courtrooms and headlines, a rumor has surfaced so explosive that the word comeback feels way too small. The claim is wild yet sharp. Pac didn't just vanish, he played the ultimate move. He slid into the shadows not to run, but to build a case that could scorch the legacies of the very men accused of pulling strings behind his disappearance. And if these new leaks carry even a shred of truth, the FBI might have already found him. Not to lock him up, but to flip the story entirely on Jay-Z and Diddy, right as their empires wobble under lawsuits and fresh indictments.
Easy, I heard that no one really wanted to sign him when you were shopping him around the record labels. Is that true?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. This was, I want to say, I don't know, 90, 91 maybe. We was, we recorded some songs, probably about 4 or 5 songs on Jay-Z, and shopped them to several different record labels, and they all passed.
This ain't just internet chatter anymore. Now the whispers are echoing from deep inside the industry and even federal circles. The kind of people who don't waste words unless they've got the receipts to back it up. Insiders claim federal agents have allegedly made contact with Shakur or someone from his inner circle, trying to secure hard proof. We're talking documents, wire recordings, money trails, even surveillance tapes that could tie Jay-Z and Diddy not only to shady dealings, but straight to the orchestration of that infamous Vegas shooting that flipped hip-hop forever. And here's where it turns chilling. Those same sources insist sealed evidence from the 90s, once believed lost or buried, has been matched with new intel allegedly passed on by Shakur himself. The FBI doesn't look like it's chasing ghosts anymore. They look like they're eyeing a man who's been silent, waiting decades for the perfect time to strike back. Picture it, Tupac watching as Diddy and Jay-Z stack power, fortune, and an untouchable image, all while knowing their empire rose on the same bloody chessboard that drove him underground. For years, headlines have piled against Diddy. Lawsuits, trafficking allegations, whispers of a criminal network tied to his empire, and Jay-Z, his name creeping into court filings, scrambling to separate himself from Diddy's flames, yet still dragged into the fire. Now it feels like that house of cards 30 years in the making is finally shaking, and right when it's weakest, the ghost they swore was gone shows back up holding the matchbook ready to burn it all down.
I think that they don't want, if they was in any of those freak-off tapes, if they played a part in any of those Diddy sessions, they don't want it to get out to the general public to make up their brand.
We gotta dig into the Cuba connection because this isn't just some side rumor, it's the backbone of the whole conspiracy. Think back to all those whispers, grainy nightclub footage floating online, locals in Havana swearing up and down they saw Shakur buying groceries, and those shaky YouTube clips showing a hooded figure with a goatee and shades who looked just a little too familiar. For years, it all sounded like fans refusing to let go of a legend, but then came the bombshell. Former bodyguard Michael Nice stepped up and went on record, claiming he had audio and video proof of Fidel Castro himself confirming he allowed Tupac to live in Cuba. The allegations get wilder. Castro personally approving a double switch, a fake body at the hospital, a secret getaway flight with the Black Panthers involved, even bribes to medical staff to seal the cover-up. Nice painted the picture of a covert escape so detailed it's chilling. Handshakes on a Barbados airstrip before Pac disappeared again, this time shielded by a regime that despised the same American establishment he spent his career battling.
Boy, Puffy called me though. Puffy called me back in the day. He called me, he was like, I just want you to know I ain't have nothing to do with your brother's,
Here's where the real weight of this story hits like a punch to the chest. Picture the betrayal Tupac must have felt, realizing the very men he once called brothers, the ones who built their fortunes right beside him, could have been the ones who ordered the bullets that left him bleeding on that Vegas strip. And then imagine the discipline it takes to vanish for 3 decades, watching from the shadows while your enemies prosper, holding back and waiting until every single piece was lined up for revenge. If these whispers hold any truth, Pac didn't just disappear to stay alive, he flipped his exile into power. He turned hiding into strategy, stacking up what insiders are calling a treasure chest of intel on the very moguls the world thought were untouchable. Sources tied to old-school Black Panther circles claim Shakur lived under strict protection for years, almost like being imprisoned but never truly powerless, trading secrets for sanctuary, all while biding his time for the moment to strike.
What about it, man? So you feel like it was bigger than Orlando shooting Pac? You feel like it's more to the story? You don't think it was that simple?
I feel like it's bigger.
What really cranks the pressure is the timing. Why now, after all these years, would Tupac choose this exact moment to step back into the picture? The answer sounds as cold as it is calculated. Jay-Z and Diddy have never been this weak. Diddy's empire is crumbling in plain sight. Lawsuits stacking, headlines screaming about wild parties, and ex-employees finally breaking silence to expose what they claim they witnessed. He's locked inside a Brooklyn detention center, denied bail, facing charges so heavy even his legendary fortune can't buy his way out. And Jay-Z, the man once seen as untouchable, the billionaire who floated above every scandal, is suddenly caught in a lawsuit with accusations so explosive his lawyers are scrambling to bury the case before his brand goes down with Diddy's. For decades, these two stood as allies, partners, and sometimes rivals, but always as men who knew exactly where the skeletons were hidden, even if they never dirtied their own hands.
As far as, is he going to turn people in? Is he going to cooperate? If the federal government wants him to cooperate and they're going to cut his time, because right now he's looking at 15 to life with all the charges he had to. He won't get out until 70 years old. He about 70. That's when they start talking about letting him come to a halfway house.
Now with the FBI chasing fresh witnesses and itching to finally close the book on old unsolved crimes, the timing couldn't be sharper. Shakur's alleged evidence isn't just about revenge. It's about leverage, justice, and maybe even redemption for himself, his mother's legacy, and the entire music world that's lived in his shadow since he vanished. Whispers say federal agents are stitching the puzzle together across decades, old phone logs from the 90s reappearing in court filings, sealed testimonies syncing with mysterious, never-before-heard recordings. Back then, the street code was simple: keep your mouth shut. But now, with Keith D., the last suspect tied to the 96 drive-by, sitting behind bars and rumored to be cutting a deal to save his own skin, and Suge Knight firing off prison tweets about justice for Tupac, it feels like the era of silence is officially done.
Yes, on your own platform. He said this on your platform that he put up $1 million to get Pac here.
Yeah, correct. He was around Puffy, and Puffy made a comment when they was around, yeah.
And nobody's overlooking the whispers about Jay-Z's role. This is where the story turns ice cold. For years, the streets pointed at Diddy as the mastermind, the one ruthless enough to throw down $1 million bounty on rivals. But lately, fresh claims are surfacing. Some tied to old accountants from the industry, others from investigators dropping cryptic hints. Allegedly, financial records have popped up linking Jay-Z's associates to wire transfers tied to names connected with the Vegas hit. Even more chilling, intercepted calls from the months before Pac disappeared are now being cross-checked against Jay-Z's known movements, painting him not as a bystander, but a quiet partner waiting to step in once Shakur was gone. Could the so-called kingmaker, the man who clinked champagne glasses at billionaire brunches with Diddy, the one credited with rebuilding hip-hop after the chaos, have been pulling strings behind the curtain all along? And these whispers aren't just coming from bitter exes or jealous rivals. Former security contractors, old death row insiders, and even retired agents are hinting at suspicious gaps in Jay-Z's timeline around the Vegas shooting. Could it be that the mogul who rose higher than anyone else in hip-hop sits on a throne built from something darker than fans ever imagined? And the stakes are higher than ever. Because if Pac really holds the proof, if he's ready to drop it in federal hands, the world isn't just waiting on a comeback. It's staring at the possible collapse of hip-hop's most powerful dynasty.
I don't think they are scared of him. I think they more so, they don't want him to embarrass their reputation and things that they've been known for. You understand?
We've all heard the wild sightings before. Pac in Havana, Pac at a nightclub in Belize, even that infamous photo of him with Beyonce that screamed Photoshop. But this time, it isn't the sightings that matter. It's the timing. Diddy's empire is already in flames, facing a criminal indictment, shocking stories of forced freak-off parties, and decades of pay-to-play accusations dragging his name through the dirt. The media is branding him hip-hop's Jeffrey Epstein, with his own fixer allegedly keeping the books. Meanwhile, Jay-Z's legal team is scrambling in panic, throwing out claims of blackmail, questioning accusers' credibility, and filing motion after motion just to stall the inevitable. The same two moguls who once posed side by side at Rock Nation brunches now look like men on the run, separately shaken and for the first time, truly scared.
If that's part of the indictment, that's somewhat like a blackmail. He was blackmailing people to be in the freak-offs. So that's federal. That could be that's a federal charge. He can't blackmail people to say, yo, listen here, you did it once and you're gonna do it again. That ain't gonna make it with the government or nobody.
All the old clues suddenly hit different. Suge Knight's cryptic interviews, Shakur's mother hinting her son chose to leave quietly, the posthumous albums, the Makaveli persona, named after the strategist who faked his own death to destroy his enemies. Every detail that once felt like fan fiction now comes alive with new meaning. Why did the coroner's report botch so many basic facts? Why did the man who handled Pac's cremation retire the very next day and vanish? And why did locals in Havana keep reporting sightings of a famous American rapper years after the world had supposedly moved on? Now the FBI is said to be re-examining it all, surveillance tapes, payment records, informant notes, like the case was never really closed. The walls are closing in fast. Hip-hop has always thrived in the space between myth and reality. But in this saga, the line is gone. What once sounded delusional now feels like a blueprint. Jay-Z and Diddy, after decades of untouchable success, suddenly look trapped by a past they thought was buried under the Nevada desert. And somewhere in the shadows, maybe in a Havana apartment, maybe just out of frame, a legend watches as the empire that tried to erase him begins to crumble. With the FBI circling, evidence stacking, and his enemies finally exposed, the only question left is chilling. If Tupac really is alive, if he really does hold the keys, what happens next to hip-hop's so-called untouchables?
And mad, still, that my brother. First of all, that's the...
One thing's for sure, if even a slice of these whispers turns out real, the fallout won't stop with Diddy or Jay-Z. Already the streets are buzzing about a long list of accomplices, lawyers, assistants, managers, even ex-bodyguards, either getting subpoenaed or suddenly vacationing overseas. Industry veterans who once strutted like royalty are now scrubbing social media, ditching old phones and cutting ties as fast as possible, desperate to disappear before the feds come knocking. That old code of silence, it's cracked wide open and everybody knows it. The industry feels like it's bracing for an earthquake, every fresh headline spilling another leak, another name, another angle. And one question cuts through all the chaos. How many careers, fortunes, and reputations will crumble into dust before this storm finally settles?
But I'm still a little suspicious about the timing and how it's all...
Now, as the dominoes keep crashing down, the world is locked in on the unraveling of an empire that once looked untouchable. This isn't just a couple of celebrities tangled in scandal. We're watching the slow-motion breakdown of the very institutions that shaped 3 decades of pop culture. Diddy, once the king of those legendary all-white parties, now sits in a concrete cell instead of a Hamptons mansion, awaiting a federal trial that threatens to drag every dark secret of the industry into the open. Trafficking, racketeering, abuse, even whispers members of a full-blown criminal enterprise. Every headline has his name stamped across it while his legal team bleeds money trying to patch holes that won't stop opening. With each new lawsuit, another enabler scrambles to flip, another victim steps forward, another hidden file threatens to surface. Nobody knows who's cutting the next deal or how much dirt is still locked away. For a man who once controlled the narrative with a single tweet or a glossy video drop, Diddy suddenly can't even buy himself a moment of silence.
Now, I ain't trying to say that's some kind of conspiracy, and maybe some other shit was going on, or this, that, and the third. But brother, he had that conversation with K. Slade 2 weeks before he was murdered.
Meanwhile, Jay-Z, the so-called blueprint for moguldom, is finding out the hard way that even the tallest penthouse comes with a glass floor. Civil suits are stacking one after another, each carrying the threat of exposing years of guarded business records and private dealings. The filings alone are enough to rattle any crisis manager, but the real danger is the shifting public mood. Fans who once praised every move are now combing through timelines, dissecting lyrics, and digging up old photos, searching for the moment where power turned into conspiracy. Jay-Z's defense swings back and forth, one moment claiming he's the victim of blackmail, the next trying to distance himself from the same partner he once called a brother. But if Pac's rumored evidence ever sees daylight, it could shred the polished version of hip-hop history Jay-Z built his empire on. And no PR team alive could polish that back up. Imagine the fallout. Two men once crowned untouchable, billionaires with liquor lines, global fashion labels, and influence stretching from Wall Street to the White House, exposed as the architects of a betrayal that changed music and black culture forever. This isn't tabloid drama or another messy celebrity scandal. This is the kind of bombshell that could erase entire catalogs, force award shows to rewrite history, and send corporate sponsors sprinting for the exits. Decades of mentorships, charities, and carefully crafted legacy projects could vanish overnight, replaced with the ugly truth behind the curtain. And if that truth comes riding in with Tupac's long-awaited return, no label, no network, and no media giant on earth will be ready for the blast.
Down. That's one reason, other than the Irv Gotti shit that 50 was going through and the poison they was putting in about 50, he had to go elsewhere to California, or with Jay and not with Dre and Eminem to get a deal.
Even the people who always swore they knew the real story are starting to sweat. Former road managers suddenly unreachable. High-powered attorneys are quietly telling the press that multiple celebrities are now under active investigation. Meanwhile, private jets fly in and out of Miami and LA packed with publicists and crisis teams, none of them able to promise protection. The old alliances that once glued the industry together, the dark corner handshakes, the scratch my back, I'll scratch yours deals, are crumbling fast under subpoenas and secret recordings. For fans who grew up believing these moguls were untouchable, the mood has flipped hard. Betrayal cuts deeper when your idols fall from this high, and all roads lead back to the eerie idea that Tupac saw this collapse coming years ago. Fans have picked apart his Makaveli persona, the cryptic lyrics, the layered album covers that seem to wink at anyone paying close attention. Exit Shakur, enter Makaveli. Look at the liner notes of the Don Illuminati, the 7-day theory released right after his supposed death. Even the title nods to Niccolo Machiavelli, the strategist who wrote about faking death to outmaneuver enemies and return stronger than ever. Was it just theater? Or was Pac laying out his survival blueprint in plain sight? What if every lyric, every cryptic interview was a veiled warning shot aimed at the same men who thought they buried him?
But tell me, man, why do you believe that Jay and Puffy is close, even though Jay's lawyer came out and said they're not?
Because Jay-Z and Puff was given an assignment.
The clues have always been right there, hiding in plain sight. Lyrics dripping with betrayal, bars hinting at revenge, visuals that blur the line between myth and reality. In one eerie photo, Pac's eyes seem to follow like he's daring the world to see past the illusion. And then there are the rumors that never die. The Havana sightings, Suga Knight's whispered confessions, bodyguards claiming to hold tapes of Castro's blessing. When you start piecing it together, even the wildest parts click into place. For years, skeptics pointed at the holes in the official story, the sloppy coroner's report, the vanishing witnesses, those uncanny posthumous albums that felt too prophetic. Was Pac sending coded messages to his enemies? Was the whole Machiavelli persona really a declaration, I'm not finished yet? That's the chilling possibility gripping the culture now. If Shakur staged his own escape, then everything about that Vegas night collapses. Was the shootout a setup? Were the hospital scenes staged? Was his disappearance the boldest performance art in music history, or the final survival move of a man who saw the walls closing in? Even die-hard skeptics are back combing through old footage, hunting for that single overlooked detail that could flip the whole story upside down.
Open Door, they laid the blueprint for me, and they're not here anymore. So I always want to make sure that, through me, through all of us, so that.
And what about hip-hop itself? What happens if the foundation of the culture is tied to a cover-up darker than any lyric ever dared to reveal? The legacy of Pac versus Biggie, West Coast versus East Coast, was supposed to be about rivalry and art, not a blood-soaked conspiracy. But with Diddy's empire collapsing and Jay-Z's name dragged through federal filings, the question now is brutal. Were the roots of modern hip-hop poisoned from the very start? It's not just about who pulled the trigger, it's about who knew, who stayed silent, and who cashed in while the world mourned. And the silence from the top is deafening. Beyonce and other A-list allies, once happy to pose arm in arm with Jay-Z and Diddy at galas and award shows, are now nowhere to be found. The mogul circles once buzzing with invites and photo ops have shrunk down to a handful of nervous loyalists. Even the music press, which spent years dodging the tough questions, is finally sinking its teeth in, digging through old contracts, exposing payouts, and speaking to people who stayed quiet for decades out of fear. There's no playbook for surviving a storm this massive, especially when the legend they tried to bury might be stepping back into the light holding the receipts.
They're big, and I was big man. That was the extent of our beef.
Insiders say the dread inside the big labels is real and growing by the day. Some believe the FBI is gearing up for a storm of indictments that could stretch far past Diddy and Jay-Z, pulling in producers, handlers, and executives who always thought their secrets would stay buried in the shadows. As one former Def Jam manager bluntly said, if Pac's got the tapes and the feds hold the leverage, it's about to be a bloodbath in the boardrooms. This isn't just about embarrassment, it's about entire fortunes built on illusions now cracking wide open. And hanging over everything is the one question no one can answer. If Tupac steps into the light with the evidence in hand, what happens to hip-hop history itself? Do we erase Diddy and Jay-Z from the pantheon of icons? Do we celebrate Shakur as the ultimate survivor, or question the cost of his silence all these years? Or maybe, is this the final twist, the last masterstroke from a man who blurred myth and reality until the whole world couldn't tell the difference? Either way, the culture may never look the same again.
Named Diddy 77 times in court documents related to Tupac's.
The FBI's renewed push, Jay-Z's legal troubles piling up, Diddy's empire collapsing under the spotlight, and the relentless whispers of Tupac's return. It all feels like hip-hop's ultimate reckoning is about to hit. We could be just days, weeks, or months away from an explosion that makes the original East Coast-West Coast war look small in comparison. Or maybe we're still lost inside the labyrinth Pac built, chasing shadows while the real answers sit locked in a vault in Havana or buried inside a federal safe house. One thing's certain, the truth is coming and nothing in the culture will ever be the same. So what do you think? Are we watching the final act for the old guard, or is there one more twist waiting to flip the game on its head? Drop your theories in the comments, hit that like button, share this video, and don't forget to subscribe, because the next bombshell could land at any moment. Hip-hop history is being rewritten right before our eyes, and trust me, nobody's walking away untouched. Thanks for watching, legends. We'll catch you on the other side.